Judas Iscariot. The story of betrayal itself often begins with one name, a name that has echoed through 2 millennia as the ultimate symbol of treachery. Judas Iscariot was one of the 12 original apostles of Jesus Christ and was entrusted as the group's treasurer. For reasons that are still debated by theologians and historians, whether it was greed, political disillusionment, or a part of a divine plan, Judas took a path that would forever define him. He went to the chief priests of Jerusalem and offered to deliver Jesus to them. The agreed-upon price was 30 pieces of silver, a sum that has since become synonymous with blood money. The act of betrayal was sealed not with a sword, but with a simple, intimate gesture, a kiss. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas identified Jesus to the waiting soldiers by kissing him, a profound perversion of a sign of affection. According to the New Testament, consumed by overwhelming guilt and remorse after Jesus' condemnation, Judas attempted to return the money. When the priest refused it, he threw the coins into the temple, left, and took his own life. His actions directly led to the crucifixion of Jesus, making him the central villain in the Christian narrative of salvation and sacrifice. His legacy is not just that of a man who betrayed his friend, but of an archetype whose very name is a warning against disloyalty, Marcus Brutus. Not all traitors are driven by simple greed or malice. Some act from a place they believe to be noble, creating a complex and tragic figure. Marcus Junius Brutus was a Roman politician and a close friend of Julius Caesar. Despite their friendship, Brutus was a staunch defender of the Roman Republic and grew increasingly fearful of Caesar's immense power and ambition. He saw Caesar's appointment as dictator for life as the final step towards the destruction of the Republic and the beginning of a monarchy. Persuaded by other concerned senators, Brutus joined a conspiracy to assassinate the dictator, believing it was the only way to restore freedom to Rome. He became the symbolic leader of the plot because of his family's legacy. His ancestor had overthrown Rome's last king centuries earlier. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, Brutus and his co-conspirators surrounded Caesar in the Senate and stabbed him to death. The legendary, though likely fictional, last words attributed to Caesar, "You too, Brutus," capture the deep personal betrayal at the heart of this political act. Instead of being hailed as liberators, Brutus and the assassins sparked a new civil war. Ultimately defeated at the Battle of Philippi, Brutus chose to take his own life rather than be captured. His story leaves us with an enduring question. Was he a traitor who murdered his friend, or a patriot who killed a tyrant? Benedict Arnold. Initially, Arnold was a celebrated hero of the American Revolution. A skilled and fearless military commander, his strategic brilliance was crucial in key victories, most notably the Battle of Saratoga. He was widely considered one of George Washington's most trusted and effective generals, risking his life and limb for the cause of independence. However, a deep-seated resentment began to grow within him. Arnold felt repeatedly snubbed by the Continental Congress, passed over for promotions he believed he deserved, drowning in debt from his lavish lifestyle, and influenced by his young, loyalist wife, Peggy Shippen, he made a fateful decision. In 1780, after securing command of the vital American fort at West Point, he secretly negotiated to surrender it to the British in exchange for £20,000 and a commission in their army. The plot was accidentally discovered when his British contact, Major John Andre, was captured by American militiamen with incriminating documents hidden in his boot. Upon learning of Andre's capture, Arnold fled just hours before Washington arrived, escaping to a British warship. He spent the rest of the war as a brigadier general in the British Army, leading raids against American cities. He died in London, a man without a country, forever remembered not for his early heroism, but for his ultimate act of betrayal. Vidkun Quisling. He was a Norwegian military officer and politician. Before World War II, Quisling founded a fascist party in Norway, but it had very little popular support. His moment came in 1940 when Nazi Germany planned its invasion of Norway. Quisling met with Adolf Hitler and actively encouraged the invasion, providing the Germans with crucial information about Norwegian defenses. When Germany launched its attack on April 9, 1940, Quisling saw his chance. In a bold radio address, he declared himself the new prime minister and ordered the Norwegian forces to stop fighting, an act of blatant treason aimed at helping the invaders. Although his self-proclaimed government collapsed within days, the Nazis found him useful. After they had fully occupied Norway, they installed him as the head of a puppet government in 1942. His regime was deeply unpopular and served only the interests of the German occupiers, assisting in the deportation of Jewish citizens to concentration camps. After Germany's defeat in 1945, Quisling was arrested, tried for treason, and executed by firing squad. His legacy is one of absolute collaboration with an enemy, making a Quisling a universal term for a citizen who betrays their country by aiding an occupying force. Aldrich Ames. He was a counterintelligence officer, a man whose job was to catch spies. By the mid-1980s, Ames was facing serious financial problems due to a lavish lifestyle and a costly divorce. In 1985, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., and offered to sell American secrets for cash. His first act was to betray every single Soviet agent who was secretly working for the CIA and FBI. He handed over a stack of documents that identified them by name. The consequences were devastating. At least 10 of these agents were immediately arrested by the KGB, interrogated, and executed. For 9 years, Ames continued to pass a massive amount of classified information to the Soviet Union and later Russia, compromising more than 100 intelligence operations. He was paid millions of dollars for his services, allowing him to buy a luxury car and a $500,000 house in cash. His colleagues were suspicious, but it took years for the CIA to realize the leak was coming from one of their own. Ames was finally arrested in 1994. The damage he caused was considered one of the worst intelligence disasters in U.S. history, a betrayal that led directly to the deaths of those who had put their trust in America. Guy Fawkes. He was an English Catholic soldier who spent years fighting for Catholic Spain against Protestant reformers. He returned to England driven by a fervent belief that the Protestant King James I and his government were persecuting Catholics. Fawkes joined a group of provincial English Catholics, led by Robert Catesby, who devised a radical plan known as the Gunpowder Plot. Their goal was not just to kill the king, but to obliterate the entire English ruling class in one swift blow. The plan was to blow up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament on November 5, 1605, an event that would be attended by the king and most of the Protestant aristocracy. Fawkes, with his military experience in explosives, was given the crucial task of guarding 36 barrels of gunpowder hidden in a cellar beneath the Parliament building and lighting the fuse. However, an anonymous letter sent to a Catholic lord warned him to stay away, exposing the plot. Authorities stormed the cellar in the early hours of November 5th and found Fawkes guarding the explosives. He was arrested, tortured, and eventually confessed. He and his co-conspirators were executed for high treason, and his story is now commemorated in the UK every year with bonfires and fireworks. Wang Jingwei. He was once a celebrated figure in Chinese nationalism. As a young revolutionary, he was a close associate of Sun Yat-sen, the founding father of the Republic of China. He was even imprisoned and nearly executed for attempting to assassinate a Manchu regent, an act that made him a national hero. For decades, he was a key leader in the Kuomintang, the Chinese Nationalist Party. However, his path diverged dramatically with the Second Sino-Japanese War. As Japan invaded and occupied large parts of China, Wang began to argue that China could not win the war, and that collaboration was the only way to save the country from complete destruction. While other leaders like Chiang Kai-shek vowed to fight to the end, Wang secretly defected in 1938. He negotiated with the Japanese and, in 1940, became the head of a pro-Japanese puppet government in Nanjing. This regime was recognized by the Axis powers and controlled occupied parts of China. To most Chinese people, this was the ultimate act of treason, a former hero siding with a brutal invader. Wang died in Japan just before the war ended, but his legacy in China is that of the country's most infamous traitor, a man whose name is now synonymous with collaborationism. Philippe Pétain. He was a national hero in France, celebrated as the Lion of Verdun for his brilliant leadership in holding the line against the German army during the brutal Battle of Verdun in World War I. His reputation was immense, and he was seen as a savior of the nation. This heroic image made his actions in World War II all the more shocking. When Nazi Germany invaded and swiftly defeated France in 1940, the French government collapsed. It was the 84-year-old Pétain who was called upon to lead. Instead of vowing to continue the fight from France's colonies, he immediately sought an armistice with Hitler. He then became the head of state of the new French state, commonly known as Vichy France, which governed the southern, unoccupied part of the country. Pétain's government actively collaborated with the Nazis. It adopted anti-Semitic laws, deported tens of thousands of Jews to concentration camps, and forced French workers to labor for the German war machine. After the liberation of France in 1944, Pétain was arrested and put on trial. He was convicted of treason and sentenced to death, but his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment due to his age and his World War I service. He died in prison, a figure whose heroic past was completely overshadowed by his collaborationist rule.